The ongoing war between Israel and Hamas has entered day 26. Israel is advancing further inside Gaza, with the IDF claiming to have struck hundreds of Hamas targets. Civilians in Gaza are facing conditions deteriorating from bad to worse. Meanwhile, Hamas rocket attack on Israel continues. A fresh rocket attack took place in central Israel's Ashdod. Now, pressure continues to build for a ceasefire. India today has created a visual image that gives you an overview of Israel's ground operation in Gaza. Israel's military is approaching Gaza City from at least 3 sides. Now, large groups of Israeli tanks and other armored vehicles are making their way deep into Gaza, as you see in those images of how the Israeli forces are in fact moving slowly into Gaza towards Gaza City. You see those images of course, how the Israeli forces are moving in. This is, of course, as far as those tanks and armored vehicles are concerned, part of the ground invasion in Gaza. As far as the Israeli forces are concerned, of course, the airstrikes continue as well. In fact, one of those strikes hitting the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza. Now, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Shiv Arur, who is joining us from the war front with the latest. Shiv, over to you.
Polomi, the airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp has become the big focal point, on day 26 of the Israel versus Hamas war. This is actually day 5 of the ground operation that began, a few days ago that we've been covering from the front. We're reporting now from Tel Aviv because there are a great deal of political movements as well in the Israeli government. The National Security Advisor of Israel had issued a statement yesterday. But if you look at the international headlines, they're all about, what happened at the Jabalia refugee camp. Now, as per our understanding, the health ministry in Gaza has released information to suggest that hundreds have been killed. Reuters reports anywhere between 50 and 100 have died in that particular attack. It was a major airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp, which is a large refugee camp containing about 7 to 8 residential towers in North Gaza, which is where most of the airstrikes and attacks have been concentrated, as you know, as we've been reporting. But the interesting thing about what happened and the tragic thing about what happened is the entire ground apparently collapsed in one part of the refugee camp, and many people fell into that hole, and this has led most people to speculate that there was a network of tunnels beneath the Jabalia refugee camp, part of the Hamas's tunnel network. The IDF here has said, Polomi, that a senior commander of the Hamas was operating from within the Jabalia refugee camp, possibly using those tunnels as well for a possible repositioning of anti-tank or rocket positions, and that's the reason why this strike was necessary. The IDF says all protocols were followed, evacuation orders had been issued, and that it was only after making sure that a certain degree of the population had been moved to a safer spot that this airstrike happened. But that's not what the Hamas, of course, is saying on the ground. The terror group, through its health ministry, has said that mass casualties have taken place on the ground at the Jabalia refugee camp. Independent verifications of the death toll are not known just yet, but I think it is beyond doubt that civilian casualties have taken place. Some of the images coming out from the Jabalia refugee camp are typically horrifying, but this is very much in keeping with how the Hamas conducts its affairs in residential areas, in refugee camps, under hospitals, under schools, under civilian neighborhoods. And I think this in some ways may in some twisted sort of way vindicate what the IDF has been saying all along. But questions will be asked about civilian casualties, and they at some point will have to be answered. I can tell you the mood on the ground right now, Polomi, is that the obliteration of the Hamas is something that Israel is very wary of staying on track on, because there is a huge amount of public pressure as far as the hostage crisis is concerned. But now, with work begun on that ground attack, Israel does not want to be seen to be wavering or equivocating even slightly. And that's perhaps the reason why the intensity and aggression of the attacks, even in areas that contain refugee camps or other civilian institutions, are continuing at this time.
Right. Shiv, just based on what you just said, the mood on the ground in Tel Aviv, in Israel itself, isn't there a concern, a worry, I'm just voicing this out loud, about hostages probably being held at these civilian institutions, at these refugee camps, at these hospital schools? Doesn't that concern the IDF?
Very, very good question. In fact, the Hamas just a couple of days ago, Polemy, had actually put out a statement saying that 50 of the hostages have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. They've not provided any proof of that because they also know that this is a game of he said, she said until there is a deal. Let's be very clear about the hostage crisis. Both sides are most definitely looking for a deal. The Hamas side is looking for the release of 6,000 prisoners and a complete cessation of hostilities right now. The Israeli side is looking for an unconditional release of the hostages, or else they will continue to go meter by meter towards Gaza City and then beyond. But like you rightly said, the intelligence on the ground is allowing the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Army to conduct slightly precision strikes. Like I said, there is no proof just yet about whether whether the hostages on the ground are being harmed, injured, or even killed by these airstrikes, because it stands to reason that these hostages are most certainly not being held in one single place. They're obviously scattered all over Gaza, and they are almost definitely in South Gaza as well, not just in the north where all the airstrikes are taking place. But like we've been reporting over the last couple of days, there appears to have been a fundamental switch in how Israel is assessing this entire unfolding hostage crisis. They believe that the Hamas is not going to release the hostages. They believe that Hamas is playing for time. They believe that Hamas holding 229 hostages, which is a colossal number. It's more hostages than Israel has ever experienced and perhaps any other country, Polemy. Hamas holds all the ace cards, as it were. And even though Israel is muscle flexing, you've heard speeches by IDF commanders inside of Gaza saying, don't stop until victory is ours. But the fact is, victory cannot be Israel's unless the hostage crisis is resolved. We reported yesterday, Gaurav reported yesterday on his show last night that an Israeli intelligence team has met with leaders in Qatar. Qatar is, of course, a country that provides a haven to the chairman of the Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh. So all those back channel discussions are definitely taking place. So there are two things happening parallelly as far as the hostage crisis is concerned. One is the aggression on the ground in Gaza, with the sense that Israel, has thrown caution to the wind and is just going in, with all its big guns blazing against the Hamas, conceivably or, at least visibly not really taking care of the hostages. But the IDF denies that. They say, we know where the hostages are. It's just a question of bringing them out. But we have to take a lot of care because they're being held by these terrorists. On the other hand, you've got these parallel back channel talks because Israel is hoping, because there's a great deal of pressure here. There's a great deal of international pressure. The hostages are not just from Israel. Remember, they're from 25 different countries. And therefore, the huge pressure is to try and do this as cleanly as possible. With each passing day, it's looking less and less likely that it will be a 100% clean operation, Polemy.
Right. Shiv, thank you so much for bringing us all of those details and updates from Tel Aviv, Israel. Thank you.